Welcome to a special episode of Carats and Conversations, powered by SGL Labs. Our guest today is a gentleman who really needs no introduction. His name is Jayant Raniga. He is the CEO of Purejewels and is based out of London. So, without further ado, we'll start a conversation with him. And as we go on talking, you will witness the various facets of his personality. Good evening, Jay Bhai.
Good evening, Anil.
Welcome to Mumbai.
Thank you.
So we have met so many times, but this is the first time we are talking on camera for the first time. So I'm really quite excited. And if I understand your background, you are born in the family of goldsmiths, Sony, but you had a career in banking. Okay. So what made you switch to the family business? How did it happen? Just run us through.
Absolutely. Well, my story with the family business actually starts from the moment I was born. So as I was growing up as a young child, my grandfather, my father, my uncles, all working in the workshop. We also had a showroom. We were the first Asian origin showroom to open in East London in 1975. Okay. I was born in 1975. So as I was growing up, my playground was the workshop. In the floor, playing with my toys, in the midst of all the sounds of workshop, manufacturing, making jewelry, the smells, the sounds, the creativity that was going on. So you can say that the business is not only part of my heritage, but it's also part of my, literally, it's in my blood. And as I was growing up in the business, my passion was always there. And I always used to say to my grandfather when I saw him working, I said, Bapuji, you have to teach me how to do this. He goes, depends on your marks better. If you get this grade, if you get this mark, okay, I will teach you this. So I kept on getting grades and he kept on teaching me. And by the time I graduated with my economics degree, I then started doing, and I always have a passion for academia as well. And I did, I was writing research papers at the time. I did a master's also. And then I had an opportunity to get into investment banking on the back of, and in fact, my research was always around precious metals. It was always around the jewelry industry. So it's always been part of my personality and my passion. And then when I started my career in the city, and I'm really grateful for that career because it gave me a lot of operational training. I had the privilege of working with some really amazing colleagues.
So you're working for a bank?
Yes, I used to be in investment banking.
Okay.
So I was working for one of the big major European investment banks, and that's where I really got my work grounding basically. And then I'm always looking over and thinking, I want to go back into business. I want to go back into business, and I'm the oldest of my generation in our family, and I felt that the business needed a bit more support, and I felt I could add a lot of value there, and it was always in my plans and always part of my passion and I always have this creative side to me, which is great. As a hobby, but the banking world, with all due respect, is fantastic in terms of operational grounding, but not necessarily the most creative space. So I followed my heart and came back into the business.
Oh, great! So when you came back to the business, you started working in the store which is on
Green Street. Yes.
East London. So, I always believe that first time is very important. Whether it is a first job or first love, first child. So what was the first sale that you made once you formally took over the operations of your store at Green Street?
So imagine I'm starry-eyed. I've left the banking world, highly well educated. Okay, I've entered the business. It's in Green Street. I'm dealing in a retail environment. Okay, we're still maintaining our, creative manufacturing workshop, atelier type of work. So naturally, it was a big shift, and so for me even while I was working throughout my education, weekends was always in the shop. So my first sale, I remember selling a bridal jewelry to a young lady, to her entire bridal jewelry at the age of 11. So that was always my, and some of me was like thinking that at the time I was thinking, oh, I'm such a good salesperson. But of course, she probably thought I was cute, 11-year-old, so she was obviously humoring me. But I managed to present all her jewelry to her. But when I entered the business, I really felt that there was an opportunity to do e-commerce. So in 2003, I worked very hard to set up our website. And that's a whole different story. Because at that time in 2003, the idea of selling jewelry online was not only an alien concept, it was always a case of "Kya aisa ho sakta hai kya?" So, and I passionately believed that it was possible because this was really at the beginning of that, stages. And I went to my uncle and I said to my uncle, I really want to do this website. I need some budget.
So what was the year that
2003.
you started? No, that was the e-commerce.
Yes.
But you left the...
Yeah, around that time. Around that time.
So straight away, after taking over, you thought of this e-commerce.
And in fact, I didn't take over. It was literally, I joined the business and I was working with my dad, my uncles, with my grandfather. My grandfather would sit next to me while I'm working. We're trying to figure out exactly where my space is in the business. And the key thing was that, I didn't want to come in and suddenly steamroll processes, organizational, heritage. The relationships with our customers. One thing I learned from very early stages that growth is great, but you cannot be a superstar. You have to be a champion, which means you have to grow with everyone, the entire existing ecosystem. You have to everyone has to grow with you. So this was something which my grandfather really taught me, that you can't do things on your own. You have to grow with everyone. You have to be patient.
So you were saying something about getting the budget for your e-com project.
Yes.
So tell us more.
Okay, so that was an interesting thing. So when I entered, my uncle was planning to come to India on his trip, normal yearly trip. My dad decided to, and my grandfather, and they decided to go on holiday to US and Canada, and I was left alone to manage the store, literally thrown in at the deep end. And at the time I said to my uncle, I want to start this e-com, what budget are you? He goes, ठीक है, 1,000-1,500 pounds में जो भी है तू कर. And I said, ठीक है, completely oblivious, completely ignorant in terms of what these things cost. And when I approached a few companies, e-commerce companies at that time in 2003, imagine, one company I picked up the phone to, I remember the conversation vividly. They said, sir, we don't get out of bed, we're the Rolls Royce of e-commerce, we don't get out of bed for under 50,000 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, and I'm like going, oh, I'm so far off. And then I came across an e-com provider who believed in the vision of what we were trying to do. And they said, TK, at this sort of rate, we will commit to it. But it was not 1,500 pounds, let me tell you that much. Once I realized the cost of these things, I then said, TK, let's do it. Let's go for it. And there was no one there to approve it. So at that time, I was hoping that, I'd be able to launch, succeed, sell, and everyone will be okay with it, at that time. So that was an interesting start, let's put it that way.
So that guy invested in your setup?
No. So he gave me he believed in the passion. He realized my budget was limited, and we met, at a point which was, I could take a gamble on it without breaking the bank, let's put it this way.
So you're one of
without any permission. So sometimes, they say it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission.
So you were one of the early adopters as far as e-com is concerned in 2003. So in the 23 years have passed now. So how has been the experience? When did you break even? Because cost of acquisition of customers is quite high, and the web or internet space is so vast that you tend to get lost. So please share some insights from your e-com experience.
They say ignorance is bliss. Okay, so when I launched in that time the website, it was in Dhanteras. It took me 2.5 months to launch it. I literally took the photographs of every product that I was launching with myself. I realized that natural daylight is the best light for shooting jewelry. And even if I had to get on the roof and capture natural daylight, sitting in London, daylight is scarce, especially as you're entering into autumn and winter, it becomes more of a commodity. So after 2.5 months, we launched the website. I put a ribbon on the screen, and I asked my grandmother to cut the ribbon, almost like an official opening of the website. At that point, my uncle and everyone realized how much I had spent but grandmother had already endorsed it, so it was done. And about a week later, we had made our first sale.
Within a week?
Within a week.
So what kind of SKUs did you display?
So I did not know what is going to sell. I did not know how we're going to sell.
So how many SKUs did you put?
250.
And mostly plain
So
gold?
mixed items, so some gold, some studded, silver jewelry also, and it was a pair of silver cufflinks, 15-pound pair of silver cufflinks that we got an order online, sitting one day, twiddling our thumbs. Suddenly this order comes in and I'm so excited. Okay, my first online sale, and it was from
What are the ticket size?
15 pounds. And it was a lady in the northwest of England, English lady, who had discovered us and thought this is a nice gift product. And you can imagine how carefully I packed that pair of cufflinks, sent it across using Royal Mail service, then calling the customer up the following day, "Madam, have you received it? Did you like it? Please give us a good review." You know, all those things are always ingrained in our memory as the first sort of sale on a new venture like this. And then, you know, the sales started coming through. And what I realized is that the minute the internet was moving quite fast at the time, even though it was early stages, it was still quite fast. So then I thought, okay, this is interesting. Then we need to start attracting more people, more traffic to the website as well. Then we started. Then we came across Google, and I realized that you can do a bit of advertising on Google, and you can get traffic coming to the website. And this is a time when Google was 1 pence, 2 pence a click.
So when did you break even? How many days or how many?
So we started breaking even within the first year. Okay, so that's when I realized that, you know, when we start buying traffic, when you start buying traffic into the website and you start making sales, there's a point where every sale costs a certain amount of money. Then I discovered that with Google advertising, there was no such thing as brand building. If you don't convert at that point in time, that's it. It's a sunk cost. So you have to be very efficient. You have to be very targeted, and you have to be very precise in terms of what you're presenting and making sure that you have the right product at the right price point in front of the right customer at the right time. So it took about a year to figure that out. Within the first 3 months, you know, my cost of acquiring the customer was far higher than the profit I was making on the product. And then tweaking, constantly changing, re-imaging, putting products in, you know, different angles, and putting as much information in, you know, being hands-on with it. Okay, it meant that within about 9 months, 6 to 9 months, we started to at least break even as far as the costings were concerned. The thing is, the volumes were still not high at that time. And what happened was, we reached break-even point within that 9-month period. I started adding more of those products which are selling. And then 3 months after that, I suddenly realized that our volumes are dropping again, even though, you know, we are still working hard, etc. Means more competitors have entered it. So it's really interesting that e-commerce is almost mimicking that perfect market scenario. Everything is visible, everything is transparent. And then we just carried on. And then what I did was then started shifting to other products. Then eventually by 2007, 2008, by 2007, we were selling engagement rings, wedding bands online. We were doing terrific volumes on that. The margins were good. But the key thing is anything which was commoditized, anything which was generic. I realized that the time span for me to earn a margin on that particular category would be literally 6 months between launch and losing the market share to competitors. So it's very aggressive online, there's no doubt about it. So that trial and error meant that we built a lot of experience, but kept on going in this cycle of, you know, break even to loss to break even to profit. You know, that continuous cycle was there basically.
Very interesting.
It's an exciting journey, and we learned a lot. By 2008, I had to obviously pivot the entire brand once I realized and I started asking soul-searching questions. And it was actually my grandfather who initiated that thought process. So I was there, we were busy, we were doing good volumes, etc. But as you mentioned, cost of acquisition is quite high online because you have to do a lot of marketing. And as long as we were the lowest price, as long as we were the most competitive, we were doing the volumes. The minute you start reducing your prices, that means it hits your profitability and your cost of acquisition is not going to go down. So by 2008, my grandfather was sitting next to me and said, "Beta, you're very busy these days." And I said, yeah, we're very busy. And then he got up and literally said, anyone can sell cheap, and walked off. And I thought that was a very interesting point. What did he mean? And then the penny dropped. And he realized that as long as I'm chasing competitive price, if you look at the jewelry industry today, we see a lot of that sort of price-driven, race to the bottom type of approach. So by 2008, I literally turned around and had to ask a very soul-searching question. And that soul-searching question was, why should I exist as a brand? We've gone online. I've come in, with all this skill set. We have all this heritage. 2008, I literally had to ask that soul-searching question, because it's not satisfying just doing volume and then constantly chasing your tail on pricing and being competitive and doing competitor analysis and all these things. It's not fun. And I realized at that point that what is the reason for us to be there in the marketplace? What value are we adding to the ecosystem and the industry where the customer will find us to be unique? And that was really where the start of our pivot and I would say current journey started.
So Jai bhai, very interesting journey. So what I'll try and do is club 2 or 3 questions so that you can answer them at length. If I understand correctly, Green Street, whatever shops I visited, the clientele is either of Indian origin or Bangladeshi origin. And from our last conversation, I gather that you have been able to get a pie of the local British customers as well. That's number one. Secondly, by its very nature, jewelry business is all about customization and giving proper service. So please let me know what is the contribution of e-commerce to physical retail, and how were you able to convert or get customers of local British origin to buy your products, and how has been the journey so far in terms of success?
So once we looked at our reason for the brand to be there, so there's one very fundamental point. We're the product of the journey from India to Africa to England. And we come from a long line of goldsmiths. So the answer was obvious. We have our heritage, we have our journey, we have the aspirations, the dreams of where we had ended up as a company, as a family, and at the same time, we focused on this idea of celebrating journeys. Not only were we celebrating our own journey as a company, but our customers also have their own story to tell and their own journeys to follow. So our brand basically evolved to focus completely on that idea. And the other thing that was very close to our heart, because we are goldsmiths, the techniques, the ancient crafts, the traditions, where the industry is moving more towards mass production techniques, I felt that there were certain traditional techniques which I'm always in awe of. And I felt that there was a good opportunity for us to take on the flag or become the flag bearer to preserve a lot of those ancient techniques. So we started really focusing on those ideas. Now, when you're in a mature luxury market like the UK, and especially London, and when your brand is evolving to become far more authentic and accepting our identity of who we are and our truth, we felt that we're now not catering to particular demographics or socioeconomic or even racial or cultural demographics, but we're now catering to a broad spectrum of audience of particular mindsets. So people who want meaningful jewelry, people who want something which is beautifully and authentically crafted, something that has narrative behind it, something that has history behind it. So irrespective of culture, we felt that our audience started growing across society in terms of the mindset that they had.
So how did you reach out to the new clientele? Because see, it's directly linked what products you have, that they have to cater to different sensibilities, different cultures. Even if you make the best of the products, how will the target consumer know that you have something they are looking for, whether it is Indian origin diaspora or whether it is British? So how did you do the marketing part?
Absolutely. So there's no doubt. I was very clear in my mind that I didn't want to go out and commercially just open up lots of branches. That was very clear strategy. I'd made a very conscious decision. The UK is not a massive market compared to the global scale. And we were operating in a niche segment. So e-commerce and being omni-channel was very important and very critical. So we started telling better stories online. We started investing much more on search engine optimizations, because I realized that just focusing the brand purely on buying traffic, so online marketing, spending marketing bucks, and not building proper content was actually more costly. So building the proper content was far more cost effective for us. And because of the longevity of our domain, we had gained a lot of brand authority. We had won a lot of design awards. We had gained, always had and gained huge respect within the industry. So we were getting a lot of good coverage generally. So people were becoming aware, slowly, they were becoming aware of our mission. Okay, our vision of celebrating journeys and our mission of preserving our heritage craft. So then we started getting more and more people coming through our website. Then they would visit the store, they would have the experience, and they would love what they're seeing. They love the aesthetics. We developed our own alloy as well. So that's how that part of.
So what is the contribution of offline sales to your turnover?
So a lot of customers discover us online. A lot of customers come into the store and then they will request to see the product and purchase it. So I would say e-commerce or our digital presence accounts for approximately 50% of
whether in terms of sales or drawing traffic to your store.
Yes, absolutely. It drives 50% of our entire business. And that really gave us a lot of resilience, because we're seen as a premium end of the market. And in a competitive sector like Green Street, for instance, and especially the South Asian diaspora markets are very competitive. So for us to flourish as a brand amidst that competition without hindering our premium position has always been the biggest challenge. But then it's also part of the fun of what we're doing, because when we wake up in the morning, or when I wake up in the morning, I'm always thinking about what value can I add to my product and service that justifies our premium position. So our team is always working hard to justify our positioning and to earn our position. That I think is very important. If we're asking the customer to give up their hard-earned money on something which is, a luxury proposition, then we have a duty to make sure we deliver against that.
And what is your contribution of studded jewelry to plain gold jewelry?
It's a good question. And I would say that we're still majority plain gold jewelry, but within that we're positioning on a premium basis, because we are quite agnostic as far as materials are concerned. Genuinely, we are much more focused on our craftsmanship. So we happen to be operating in gold, and when we're inserting gems, so we actually set diamonds. Natural, or whether it's lab grown, or whether it's for instance precious gems, we would set that in 22 carat. Okay, it's a technique that we have developed, and it's very difficult to do, but that's because of the traditional techniques that we are using in manufacturing. It's possible. But when we're talking about the Purejewels brand, we are focusing on the preservation of obviously the craft, but also on the rarity of materials. So that's where we work with in terms of the materials for Purejewels. So plain gold jewelry is still something which is very much in demand for us, and we're seeing much more precious gems being set in gold as well. So that's a big growth area for us, and a lot of color as well. And even colored diamonds, we're doing a lot more work.
Since we are in the experience centers, such a beautiful experience center set up by SGL, I wanted to know your views on the gemmological certification and what contribution the labs are making towards building trust, transparency, technology. I would like to have your views.
So we love the fact that customers trust us as a brand, but we don't take that for granted. We want them to trust us. They want them to trust our processes and our honesty in the marketplace. But at the same time, we have to back it up with proper documented evidence. And I think that's very important. So we have the hallmarking system, which is law in UK. But the things that the customers, which is not mandatory, but we like to give anyway to the customers, is of course the gem certificates to show that this is how much material. So it's a matter. It's about being transparent, and it's about complete disclosure. See, the customers don't mind what they're buying as long as they know about it. And the only way to authenticate that is through a third-party independent testing center like SGL, where that documentation holds a lot of weight and reassurance for the customer, and it evolves the product from being a mere commodity into an asset.
So as far as certification is concerned, there are two sides of the coin. One is when you are catering to the requirements of your consumer. Okay, you are giving him all the documentation and building trust and transparency. On the other side, when you are buying jewelry, you may be manufacturing, but there must be some percentage which you are buying from vendors. So in that aspect also, I think gemmological laboratories have a big role to play.
Definitely. And even it reassures us in terms of what we are buying. See, if again, it's the same ethos, right? That if I'm going to give guarantees to my customer, then I need those reassurances further up the stream in terms of our own supply chain. So I think the ecosystem of having certification and independently third-party verified certification, like SGL, is critical in our ecosystem.
So fast forward to 2024, 2025, how have the last 2 years been? Because a lot of things have happened in these 2 years, which definitely have impacted business. Of course, we are now past Brexit, but there is still taxation is very high. Then we have India, UK treaty. So considering all those aspects, how have been the last 2 years in your journey as a retailer and a manufacturer?
So we see ourselves, as far as the India and UK relationship is concerned, we see ourselves as an example of a living bridge between India and UK. And the reason I say that is because we have a lot of my back office operations are based out of India. So half my team sits in Mumbai, half my team is in London. So not only are we manufacturing in London, but we're also now manufacturing in India as well through our own vertical integration. And the last 2 years have been quite challenging. But at the same time, when you have an economic situation that we're seeing, and when you're seeing these type of shocks in the industry, it opens up a lot of opportunities. And when you see, if we look at the industry at the moment, the industry is chasing price points. We as a brand made a very conscious decision that we're not going to chase price points. We're going to hold our ground. What we're going to do is we're going to provide more service and add more value to the proposition we have. Because we passionately believe in the approach of jewelry making that we have as a company. So we really worked very closely with a lot of, and the UK is renowned for its standards. So one additional facet that we really worked hard last year, we were approached by Edinburgh SA office. And Edinburgh SA office asked us to become the pilot brand for their digital product passports for jewelry, which is effectively the Janam Kundli of jewelry. So imagine that in partnership with Everledger, which is the blockchain company. So imagine the privilege of participating on a pilot project like that, and to prove the concept that a digital product passport is possible for jewelry. And we can only achieve that type of supply chain transparency and supply chain mapping if we are a manufacturer. So I know, and so imagine the detail of where every piece of jewelry, whether the gold was recycled or not, who was the Karigar that set the diamonds, what was the source of the diamonds. So you can imagine where SGL certificate becomes very valuable in terms of authenticating. So all those fragmented pieces of data that exist in our industry, we had that role of pulling all that data together into a single system and to attach it to the product through an alphanumeric code, and then all deposited on a blockchain ledger independently that stays with that product forever. So it really takes it from commodity to asset.
I would like to say, and I really mean it, you are a friend of the gem and jewellery industry, global gem and jewellery industry. You have worked very closely with the GJEPC, GJC, even London. You are very instrumental in organizing trade shows there. And specifically, I want to know your experience of interacting with our Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
That was, I would believe, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was a huge privilege to be asked by GJPC to represent India, gem and jewelry industry, in presenting the best designs, the best craftsmanship coming out of India, and presenting those jewelry pieces during the FTA signing, India-UK FTA signing at Checkers. And presenting jewelry to Prime Minister Starmer and to our Prime Minister Narendra Modi was a huge privilege. And just to be in their presence and to, to talk about jewelry, which I'm so passionate about, was an incredible experience.
Oh, fantastic. And your efforts were appreciated. And you are, as I said earlier, you are a friend of the industry. All this while, you were not into lab-grown diamonds. Of course, you never refused your consumers. Used to make, depending on their order, made to order kind of a thing. And if I understand correctly, you have made a foray in lab-grown diamonds and jewelry as well. So please tell us the turning point. How did you decide to foray into lab-grown diamond industry? What are the prospects?
So I'm a person who believes in innovation. I've always been innovative, obviously, in our approach to business. So while I appreciate rarity, heritage, you cannot grow without embracing innovation. I think that's very important. And wherein the game we're in as a company is, as I said to you, is preservation. So we're agnostic in terms of materials. We happen to be working in this industry, we happen to be working in these materials, and it's part of our heritage truth. As goldsmiths, the material of choice is obviously gold, and there are certain properties of gold which makes it very, it's part of our DNA in that sense. But when it comes to embellishments, so natural diamonds, precious gems, and also lab-grown diamonds. For us, it's really about the story the customer, because we're celebrating journeys. So it's really about the story the customer wants to tell and how they want to reflect their process. So we don't actually try to push one or the other. My job is to present all the options.
Offer the choice to
the choice to the customer, and the customer can then customize based on what they're after. And this is, again, part of our pragmatism as a company. At the end of the day, my ethos of celebrating journeys is really about customer first. If the customer wants to celebrate their journeys through rarity, we can give this option. If they want to customize their journey through innovation, if they want to customize their journey or celebrate their journey through something which is modern, then we have a duty to offer that to them as well.
Very good. So in terms of incremental revenue from lab-grown diamonds and jewelry, in the next 2 years, in terms of percentage or in terms of pounds, what is your expectation?
So we are a growing company. We are producing more and more of our own products. As you know that we are now, we have authorized stockists carrying the Purejewels brand. We had the launch with a very nice independent jewelry business based in Blackburn, in the northwest of England, called Ainsworth Jewellers, a 155-year-old heritage jeweler just like us. And they have very successfully welcomed the Purejewels brand into their store. Like that, we are hoping to open many more stockists in the UK. So we're naturally going to see growth from that perspective.
I'm more interested in the contribution of lab grown as you.
Oh, I see. Okay, specifically on lab grown. No, I see lab grown being, in terms of volume, definitely. Obviously, with lab grown diamonds, the price points are lower for the materials, so it'll remain to be seen what's going to happen to our average transaction values. But, you know, we will not compromise on the quality of our craft because it's lab grown. Whether the cost of the mounting for us will remain the same. So it's just whatever the incremental value of the additional material, the embellishments are, will change. So, you know, where a lot of the industry has moved towards creating lighter mounts, where they're chasing the price points of lab-grown diamonds to, you know, hit price points in the marketplace. We're not doing that. If a customer chooses that they want a lab-grown diamond in one of our Lotus engagement rings, or they want lab-grown in one of our collection pieces, say our Zaria collection pieces, we'll give the option to them. But we won't obviously affect the way we make those fundamental products, because that's fundamentally the reason why the customer is coming to us. It's the user experience with our product.
I remember what you told me some time back, that out of the 5 inquiries, new inquiries that you get, 4 are for lab-grown diamond jewelry. So all the very best. I'm sure you will make the most of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.